started with one claim. In total silence, Iran announced it had launched advanced ballistic missiles toward high-level Israeli targets. Not a border base, not a proxy group, not a warning shot. They claimed the strike targeted facilities connected to Israel's top leadership. Within minutes, social media exploded. Markets reacted. Air defenses lit up the sky. And then came the most dangerous part. No confirmation. Was Israel's prime minister inside the targeted compound? Was senior military leadership present? No verified statement, no public appearance, just silence stretching hour by hour. In modern warfare, silence is not calm, silence is pressure building. Iran claimed it used its K-bar Shinnin ballistic missiles, a system designed for long-range precision strikes. These missiles travel at extreme speed. Once launched, impact comes within minutes. There's almost no time to debate, only time to react. If the claim is accurate, this was not symbolic. This was strategic messaging written in fire. Now, here's why this moment matters. For years, Iran and Israel operated in what experts call a shadow war, cyber operations, targeted assassinations, proxy conflicts in Syria and Lebanon. But both sides generally avoided direct public leadership targeting. That line existed for a reason, because once leadership becomes a target, deterrence rules collapse. If a sitting prime minister is believed to be under direct missile threat, that changes everything. It moves conflict from tactical to existential, and existential conflicts do not stay limited for long. But the story didn't stop there. Almost immediately, reports surfaced of drone activity across the Gulf, interceptions in the skies, missile alerts near strategic energy facilities. Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure, already historically vulnerable, was rumored to be under renewed threat. Traders responded instantly. Oil prices jumped before governments even held press conferences. Energy markets don't wait for confirmation. They price in fear, and fear spreads fast. If major Gulf oil facilities are at risk, the shock does not stay in the Middle East. It hits gas prices in America. It hits manufacturing in Europe. It hits shipping lanes in Asia. Nearly 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. That narrow waterway becomes a global pressure point overnight. Now, think about the United States. American military bases sit across the Gulf, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE. If missiles or drones fly anywhere near those installations, Washington faces a decision that could define an entire presidency. Respond forcefully and risk a regional war. Hold back and risk losing credibility. And credibility in global politics is everything. At the same time, China watches carefully. China depends heavily on Gulf oil. Stability matters to Beijing, but so does influence. If Gulf states begin doubting U.S. security guarantees, China can step forward, offering economic partnerships and alternative defense arrangements. No missiles required, just opportunity. Russia, too, benefits from rising energy prices. Prolonged instability stretches Western focus and resources. In geopolitics, distraction is leverage. But let's come back to the human layer. Airlines begin rerouting flights, insurance premiums spike. Corporate security teams activate evacuation protocols. Billionaires quietly book charter jets. Multinational companies review contingency plans. This is how modern war spreads without formal declarations. It moves through markets, through airports, through supply chains. And inside Israel, the pressure intensifies. Israel's defense doctrine is built on deterrence and rapid response. Systems like Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow exist to prevent exactly this type of penetration. If ballistic missiles broke through, even partially, confidence must be restored quickly, because deterrence is psychological. If enemies believe they can strike senior leadership facilities, that belief alone shifts power. Now add domestic politics to the equation. Israeli citizens demand security. Iranian citizens demand retaliation. Gulf citizens demand protection. American voters demand stability without another endless war. Every leader involved is balancing military response with political survival. And here is what makes this moment uniquely dangerous. Economic interdependence. This is not the 1970s. Global. Markets are deeply connected. One refinery explosion in Saudi Arabia can ripple through global inflation rates within days. Stock markets halt trading during extreme volatility. Currency values swing sharply. Central banks prepare emergency measures. War today is not just fought with missiles. It is fought with market reactions. If Israel confirms leadership survival quickly, that stabilizes one layer of panic. If confirmation delays continue, rumor becomes its own weapon. Uncertainty amplifies escalation risk. Right now, information is fragmented. Narratives are competing. Markets are reacting faster than diplomats. And the real question is not just whether a leader survived. The real question is whether deterrence survived. Because once leadership targeting becomes normalized, once energy infrastructure becomes open season, once superpowers are forced into reactive positions, containment becomes nearly impossible. This may not just be another exchange of strikes. This may be the moment the regional order begins to shift. If you're thinking this is just another Middle East flare-up, think again. Because what happens next could reshape alliances, oil markets, and global power balances for years. Say continue. And we break down what Israel, Iran, and the United States are calculating right now. Behind closed doors, behind every public statement, there's a war room. Inside Israel, military leadership would immediately activate continuity protocols. If top officials were potentially targeted, backup chains of command go live instantly. Intelligence agencies analyze launch trajectories. Air defense commanders present interception percentages. Every radar signature is reviewed because the first question is simple. Was this a message or the beginning? If Israel believes Iran crossed into direct leadership targeting, retaliation cannot be symbolic. Israeli doctrine emphasizes restoring deterrence decisively. A limited strike on proxy forces might not be enough, but striking Iranian territory directly, that crosses a dangerous threshold. Iran, however, does not need total war to achieve strategic impact. It needs perception shift. If Gulf states begin doubting American protection, if Israel appears vulnerable, if oil markets surge, Tehran gains leverage without occupying land. Iran's strategy relies on layered escalation. It can strike directly. It can activate regional proxies. It can launch cyber operations. It can threaten shipping lanes. Multi-front pressure creates overload. Now consider Saudi Arabia. For decades, Gulf security has depended heavily on American defense guarantees, advanced missile defense systems, intelligence cooperation, rapid deployment forces. But if drones and missiles are breaching that shield, even partially, doubt creeps in. And doubt is strategic. Energy infrastructure is not just economic, it's geopolitical leverage. Damage to major oil facilities shocks global markets instantly. Insurance premiums for tankers spike. Shipping costs rise. Fuel prices climb worldwide. Inflation does not care about politics. It responds to disruption. Now, Washington faces a decision cycle. Were U.S. assets directly threatened? Are American personnel at risk? Does restraint damage alliance credibility? The Pentagon must balance deterrence with escalation control. American public opinion adds pressure. Voters are wary of prolonged Middle East wars. Yet, global credibility cannot erode without consequence. Meanwhile, China calculates long-term positioning. Beijing prefers stability, but under reduced American dominance. If Gulf states reconsider exclusive reliance on Washington, China can expand influence quietly through defense agreements and infrastructure investment. Russia benefits economically from higher oil prices. Prolonged instability stretches Western focus. Strategic distraction is an advantage. Now look at financial markets in more detail. Oil futures spike, airline stocks drop, defense stocks rise. Currencies of oil importing nations weaken. Stock exchanges may halt trading temporarily if volatility crosses thresholds. Wealth managers advise high net worth clients to reduce exposure. Corporate boards activate crisis management teams. War today moves through algorithms before it moves through infantry. Airspace closures cause immediate ripple effects. Thousands of passengers stranded, cargo delayed, supply chains tighten. In tourism-driven economies like the UAE, even short disruptions create revenue shock. And there's the psychological element. Gulf cities built global reputations on safety and stability. Missile alerts damage brand confidence fast. Investors notice patterns. Corporations reconsider expansion plans. Now, let's focus on escalation tiers. Military planners think in levels. Level 1, limited strikes and rhetoric. Level 2, infrastructure targeting. Level 3, leadership targeting. Level 4, full-scale regional war. If leadership facilities were targeted, the conflict already sits at level 3. Moving backward becomes politically difficult. Inside Iran, leadership must balance external aggression with internal stability. Sanctions already pressure the economy. Extended war strains, currency and public sentiment. Iran must show strength without triggering an overwhelming coalition response. Inside Israel, appearing weak is not politically viable. Deterrence credibility is existential for Israeli security doctrine. This asymmetry creates danger. Iran can claim symbolic victory. Israel must visibly reestablish dominance. And the Gulf states, they're caught in the middle. If hosting foreign military bases increases vulnerability instead of decreasing it, strategic alignment may shift long-term. Multipolar diplomacy becomes more attractive. This is not just about missiles, it's about trust. If trust in security guarantees erodes, the entire regional architecture adjusts. The next 72 hours are critical. If Israel strikes deep into Iran, escalation accelerates. If Iran activates multiple proxy fronts, pressure multiplies. If the United States enters kinetically, regional war becomes possible. But if back-channel diplomacy begins quietly, escalation may freeze. The outcome depends not only on military capacity, but on political stamina. And the clock is still ticking. Say continue, and we'll break down the possible endgames, who wins long-term, how oil markets respond, and whether this reshapes Middle Eastern power permanently. Every conflict eventually reaches a point where leaders ask one question. What does victory actually look like? There are 4 realistic endgames. First, controlled de-escalation. Israel conducts a measured strike to restore deterrence. Iran responds symbolically. Both sides claim success domestically. Oil prices stabilize gradually. Flights resume. Markets recover. This is the cleanest outcome, but politically difficult. Second, prolonged shadow conflict. Cyber attacks, proxy rocket fire, targeted covert operations, economic warfare. No official war, just constant pressure. This drains economies slowly. It creates chronic instability. It shifts alliances gradually. Third, regional escalation. If Israel targets major Iranian facilities and Iran retaliates against U.S. bases with casualties, Washington enters sustained conflict mode. Naval deployments surge, air superiority campaigns expand, shipping lanes militarize, oil prices could spike dramatically, global recession risk increases, energy importing nations scramble. Nobody wins short term, but global power dynamics shift permanently. Fourth, strategic realignment. If Gulf states conclude reliance on a single security partner increases risk, they diversify alliances. Stronger ties with China, diplomatic engagement with Iran, multi-vector foreign policy replaces exclusive alignment. This outcome reshapes the region quietly but permanently. Now, let's analyze who benefits. Rapid de-escalation preserves the current balance. Shadow war favors Iran's gray zone strategy. Regional war destabilizes all but benefits outside energy exporters. Strategic realignment strengthens China long term. And what about the Strait of Hormuz? If shipping is disrupted even temporarily, global supply chains adjust. Insurance premiums soar, consumer goods prices rise, inflation resurfaces worldwide. War today is economic shock therapy delivered to every household on the planet. Now consider domestic stability. Israel's population demands security. Iran's leadership must avoid economic collapse. Gulf states must preserve investor confidence. The U.S. must balance deterrence with voter fatigue. Sustained instability pressures all four simultaneously. Historically, Middle East conflicts often end not in total victory, but in a negotiated deterrence reset. Public rhetoric stays aggressive while private talks explore new limits. The trigger for diplomacy will be cost recognition. Once both sides calculate that further escalation produces diminishing returns and rising economic damage, negotiations accelerate quietly behind closed doors. But even if missiles stop tomorrow, the structural damage is already done. Gulf states have witnessed real vulnerability. Israel has faced direct leadership-level targeting. Iran has demonstrated unprecedented reach. The United States now confronts serious credibility questions it cannot ignore. The balance of fear has shifted, and once fear replaces certainty, regional order never fully returns to what it was. This moment will not be remembered simply for how many missiles were launched or how many targets were hit. It will be remembered as the night the old rules stopped applying. The night deterrence was tested at its highest level, and the world held its breath waiting to see if it would hold. Because the leaders making decisions right now are not just fighting for territory or political points. They are fighting to define what the next 20 years of Middle Eastern power looks like. Every strike, every silence, every delay in confirmation is a message being sent and received by capitals across the globe. And the world is watching, calculating and repositioning in real time. The era of predictable escalation and managed conflict is over. What comes next will be shaped not by old rulebooks, but by who moves first, who holds their nerve longest, and who understands that in this new world, the most powerful weapon is not a missile. It is the ability to control what the world believes is happening before the truth even has time to land.